Chapter 3559. When Charlie and the Wade family finished briefly paying respects to their ancestors, and together with grandfather Zhongquan and youngest Aunt Layla, they arrived at Shangri-La to prepare for the banquet for all the friends and relatives who had been at Waderest Mountain today. The outside world, who had been following the movements of Waderest Mountain, had already received the news. Learning that the Wade family had finally compromised with the Cataclysmic Front, none of those who did not know the inside story doubted the authenticity of the news. After all, even if these wealthy families were powerful, they could not possibly defeat the Cataclysmic Front. This was the basic consensus of everyone. What's more, the head of the Cataclysmic Front, and the family that has a deep hatred, will not be able to forgive the Wade family people. The Wade family's side branches that fled overnight, after receiving the news, each one of them was incomparably thankful deep inside. They were thankful that they reacted quickly and ran faster, thus escaping a disaster. However, in addition to being thankful that they had escaped, they were also all worried about the future. These side families are all dependent on the Wade family for survival, and the main source of income for many branches is the business rewarded to them by the Wade family. After all, each side family, from the main family step by step, which is like Zhongquan became the head of the family, his brother Jonathan, will have to consciously leave the Wade family to go out to establish their own business. And Zhongquan, out of compensation or out of kinship, naturally cannot expect his brother to care for him. And also as much as possible to give him some resources, so that he does not have the idea of fighting for the head of the family. The second also to maintain kinship, while once the need, these distant relatives can also rush to help. The reasoning behind this is just like the ancient times when the crown prince ascended the throne and arranged his other brothers around as vassal kings. For these side families, once they lose the Wade family tree, their own future development will also be greatly affected. However, not waiting for them to take a breath, Cataclysmic Front released the news, asked all the Wade family sidelines whose names appear in the Wade family ancestral ceremony list to reach the foot of the Waderest Mountain kneeling worship, tomorrow morning before 8 o'clock. Late arrival will be in the list of the Cataclysmic Front's global hunt. Once this news came out, these big domestic families were even more shocked. Everyone didn't expect that the Cataclysmic Front was not satisfied with conquering the Wade family, but even these side branches of the Wade family were not spared. And these side lines of the Wade family were also desperate to the extreme. The feeling of survival after the escape did not last long and was immediately replaced by the despair of the monk who could not run away from the temple. Wade family ancestral ceremony big list has long been listed with each of their names. Identity information is recorded in great detail. For example, the person's name, how old, what generation, where the family, who is the father, who is the grandfather, and then the ancestors of which branch of the Wade family. These are all written clearly with a brush dipped in vermilion. Because this big list is meant to be burned for the ancestors to see after the ancestral ceremony, so no one dares to have any muddle on this. Now, this list has fallen into the hands of the Cataclysmic Front, then this is the same as every person's old bottom, are firmly grasped by the Cataclysmic Front. Even if you have to run, you shouldn't. The strength of the Cataclysmic Front, these people know very well. If they really want to assassinate them, it is as easy as a hand, so no one dares to disobey the orders of the front. So, these people can only harden their heads, apprehensive to rush back. Jonathan's children and grandchildren received the news through the satellite network on the private plane back to Canada. 10 minutes after receiving the news, the plane drew a circle directly at a height of 10,000 meters and turned around to return to Eastcliff. Chapter 3560. Meanwhile, Charlie had already filled his glass and thanked all his friends and relatives present one by one in the banquet hall of Shangri-La. And his friends and relatives, including his father's best friend Philip, at this time looking at him, and they have been like looking at God. Charlie's first toast was to Philip. In his eyes, Philip is the most worthy of his respect, is also the best for his own elders. Therefore, today his family of 3 could go up to Waderest Mountain. Charlie is heartily grateful. After a few glasses of wine, he could not hide his excitement and said to Charlie, "Charlie, now that you have taken the Cataclysmic Front under your command, the Wade family's strength is already the first among many families in China. If we look at the world, can at least be among the top 10. Charlie opened his mouth and said, "Top 10 is still a long way from number 1. Philip said seriously, "It doesn't matter if there is a gap, but you must be steady and unwavering, step by step." Said, Philip instructed Charlie, "Charlie, Rothschild, such family's strength is too strong. Now this kind of time, I really do not recommend that you contact them too early." Charlie nodded and smiled. "Uncle, don't worry, I'm going to Northern Europe this time, I won't fight them hard. I'll mainly help Helena take back the throne first and contact the Rothschild family. By the way, I'll hide my identity at that time, you don't worry." Philip can see Charlie has decided to go, then instructed, "Rothschild in Europe and the United States, commonly known as old money. It is not like Bill Gates, a new generation of tycoons. Every property, every stock are on the surface. It is more like a huge iceberg, we can see now, but is the tip of the iceberg. And what makes it really powerful is its pervasive and comprehensive penetration throughout Western society in the past few hundred years. On the surface, they seem to have 10 enterprises, but in reality, the enterprises actually controlled by them through various means, there may be as many as several thousand. This power is quite terrifying, so terrifying that even if your grandfather's family has been ranked as one of the 3 great families in the world, but the assets of your grandfather and the Middle East royal families combined, may not be able to compete with Rothschild." Speaking of this, Philip admonished, "Charlie, at any time, in the face of the Rothschild family, you must be absolutely careful." Charlie nodded solemnly and said, "Uncle, don't worry, I know what's in my heart." At this moment, Sarah at the side looked at Charlie with an excited face and said excitedly, "Charlie, with your strength, I believe that even the Rothschild family will be trampled under your feet." Sarah was originally Charlie's little fangirl, and now she even looked like an avid fan. Charlie gently nodded and smiled. "Sarah, don't worry, this day will come eventually." After saying that, he poured another glass of wine and said, "Uncle, Auntie Lennon, and Sarah, I'd like to toast you 3, thank you again for your love for me." The 3 GU family members poured glasses full of wine and drank it all together with Charlie. Charlie saw the Song family and the Ito family sitting at the same table not far away, so he said to the 3 members of the GU family, "There are some other friends over there, I'll go and say hello first." "Go ahead," Philip said with a smile, "remember to come back later to drink with Uncle." "Okay." Charlie said goodbye to the GU family and carried his glass of wine to the table where the Song family and the Ito family were. At this time, Nanako, watching Charlie getting closer and closer, although the face is still as gentle as water, but the eyes full of love cannot be disguised. She originally loved Charlie extremely deeply. Today with her own eyes she saw his strength, let the entire front kneel in front of him, kowtow and beg for mercy. She only felt that, if she could not marry Charlie in this life, or cannot become his woman, then she can only be alone in this life to the end. Because she knew that there would not be any other man who could completely conquer her from the consciousness as Charlie did. As for the dignified and beautiful Warnia, she has always demanded herself with the style of a lady, but deep inside she has also fallen like a small woman. Just as Charlie reached the front, the Song family as well as the Ito family, all stood up. Ito Yuhiko and Tanaka Koichi couldn't stand because they lost their legs, but they also immediately raised their glasses high and looked at Charlie with respect. And the nearly 200 people brought by their 2 families also stood up in unison with a swish. Among them, more than 100 top ninjas, who were usually regarded as national treasures in Japan, stood straight while their hands were humbly hanging at the sides of their bodies, and their necks and heads were respectfully lowered by 45 degrees with respectful faces. This is their instinctive reaction and etiquette when facing a powerful person that they respect and fear. This scene was seen by Philip, who could not help but sigh to his wife and daughter. These ninjas seem to have been completely convinced by the strength of Charlie, and in front of him, they don't even dare to raise their heads. Sarah seriously said, "That's right. Charlie's strength is much stronger than theirs, so they must be respectful." Lennon muttered softly, "I feel that Ito Family Girl, and the song Family Girl, the way they look at Charlie seem to be not quite right." After saying that, she also glanced at another table not far away, sitting Jiu as well as Ruoli, the two sisters, sighing, and that pair of sisters from the Su family, look at Charlie, are also a bit problematic. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for new updates. Thank you very much, keep safe everyone and God bless you all.